Hi there, folks. My name is Maciej. I'm the main designer behind Ticket to Europe. My job is basically to design all of the mechanics that you will see in the game, as well as overall oversee more technical aspects of the game, like programming and UI, for example. I have to say that it has been actually a while since I've played the game more as a player than as a developer, so I'm actually quite looking forward to the experience, and maybe it will give me some new perspectives that will help me improve the game further. So yeah, let's get the display rolling. You are a frustrated 30-something wannabe writer from Warsaw who decides to make something out of himself. You will amaze the literary world with your earth-shattering book about refugees. It will inspire crowds and galvanize hearts and expand minds and change the world in all the right ways. Before you prepare your Nobel Prize acceptance speech, there's only one trivial matter of actually traveling to Africa to gather some notes for the story. You have an ingenious plan to smuggle yourself onto one of the illegal boats that travel to Europe from the shores of Africa, while pretending to be a refugee yourself. Surely nothing can go wrong and you are not completely out of your depth. Surely, right? Your main objective is to collect notebook entries, which will allow you to write a better book. Meet people, explore places, gain experiences. Be perceptive and inquisitive. Any information can be relevant. Any person can become your protagonist. Write down everything that seems significant, interesting, and surprising to you. Become a writer. Your flight is in a couple of hours. Chapter 1. Home, Bitter Home. The cursor is blinking on the white background of an empty page. Your flight is in a couple of hours. Let's see, which option will I take? It was 2014 when I first heard about the boats sinking in the Mediterranean. And yeah, actually this is pretty accurate. I was very vaguely aware of the issue before that, but I really only started learning about it more in depth when I met our writer, J. We met around 2014 while both working as QA testers on The Witcher 3 here in Warsaw. So as you can see, you have such a thing called the tags here, which basically are things that will describe the personality, the state, the inventory of your character. And they have many ways of influencing the story. There is a lot of checks and variables that we keep track of. And for now, we are going kind of for more of a neutral, kind of like your typical journalistic approach. It was 2014 when I first heard about the boats sinking in the Mediterranean, long before Polish journalists took note of the subject. At that time, news on refugees barely got through to the mainstream media. The competition was strong. The war in Ukraine, basically the previous conflict, not the current one, since the game takes place in 2020. Russian annexation of Crimea, the Ebola epidemic. In this light, few cared about stories of illegal voyages from Africa to Europe. I write on. Meanwhile, against the trend, I have become attached to the subject of refugees like a suction cup to a shower door. I hope to milk it for the precidal juices and free myself from the arduous weightlessness of my existence. 6 years and dozens of books on the migration crisis later, I am one flight away from looking in the eyes of the people whose tragedy protects me from taking antidepressants. This is a good start. A moment's pause. I skim the text. I read it once, twice, 10 times. I savor the sentences. Perhaps it's not the reportage in its purest form, neutral and objective, but it feels mine and personal. Calmness washes over me. The ritual is interrupted by the cat. I feel something rubbing against my foot. The fluffiness of the cat's fur reminds me of my childhood, of some strange state of mind where unconditional happiness is possible, without reason, without logical explanation, without any deeper causes. Just a primal, childlike joy. And the instant gratification I feel when I hear the fluff ball's velvety purrs. Now I can't help myself either, and I give Engels a scratch. By the way, Engels the cat is a real character that exists, and you probably will see him in one of the streams because he's still around. First at the back of his neck, then on his head, and finally his favorite place, which only his most trusted friends and are allowed to touch, the fur on his face. Petting a cat resembles a trance or meditation. It rids the mind of any unnecessary thoughts. What is left is the pure physical act of direct contact between two living beings. I wait for the blissful pair, but it never comes. I scratch on. Silence. Engels seems unwell. He turns his head away and avoids my touch. At the same time, he doesn't attack me with his claws. He's not in the mood for playing either. He walks lifelessly towards the radiator and snuggles down at its base, as if something were troubling him. Perhaps he senses that I'm about to leave him. There are a couple of hours until takeoff. Does Engels understand what objects strewn around the backpack mean? Is that what he seems? Is that why he seems depressed? I can only hope that Hela will make it up to him. As I wait for her arrival, I decide to spend the rest of my time at the apartment. Packing. I will be gone for at least 15 days. That's very optimistic. But I have to fit all of my stuff into the small backpack. A rainproof jacket, t-shirts, and underwear, my wallet, documents, toiletries, phone charger, and 3 notebooks take up most of the space in the main compartment. I can just squeeze one book in. I'm still not sure which one I should choose. Let's go with the Polish writer Jarosław Mikołajewski. The Great Tide. Yeah, so some of the choices that you make earlier can influence what happens later on in the story. In that case, we were able to pick this book because we do not have the cynical tag that our character possesses, because we went with a more neutral approach. A non-fiction author, a non-fiction account of narrator's journey to Lampedusa, which is brief but thick with content. The Italian island, 100 kilometers off the African coast, known for its surrounding turquoise sea and fabulous beaches, became a symbol of migration crisis when hundreds of boats filled with refugees began reaching its shores. Although the book is just 130 pages long, I've been reading it for several weeks now, because it hurts my self-esteem. Mikołajewski is more than a journalist, he's a poet too, and it shows. He combines the succinctness and the precision of a lyrical phrase with hard facts, which intimidates me. What's the point of writing another book about refugees if a work as thorough and complete as The Great Tide has already been written? My copy is full of underlined sentences and scribbled notes on margins. I have to admit, though, that when I started, I would reach for my pencil every couple of lines, and then I started seeing the point. I stopped seeing the point. Otherwise, I would have to underline entire pages. Despite his enviable style, Mikołajewski himself emanates extraordinary modesty. That's a hard word, extraordinary, and humility. Although the narrative is written in the first person, there isn't much I could say about its author. He listens to his protagonists, the residents of Lampedusa, a doctor, the mayor, or a turtle caretaker. He just doesn't judge, nor does he assign value. He stays in shadows. In his literary interpretation, the Polish school of reportage achieves its peak form. I choose Mikołajewski as the literary patron of my expedition to Africa. So yeah, we could have picked, I think, 3 authors that were the main inspiration of our character, and while you still kind of can go against whatever you picked, it does have some influence of how the story unfolds later. Basically, what sort of book, what sort of reportage you want to write. Into the left one, I'll put something to lift my mood, the left compartment. After all, refugee stories can be traumatic. Over the past few days, I watched a series of interviews with volunteers who talked about their humanitarian burnout. They were overwhelmed by the scale of human tragedy and suffering they faced in refugee camps. Just in case, I decided to pack psychiatric medication. Ultimately, the human mind is merely the product of very complicated chemical reactions. In the right pocket, I'll hide a power bank. Or maybe a pack of cigarettes. I guess that could be useful since, you can always trade them for something even if you don't smoke them. And in many places they are almost a second currency. A smoke a day keeps the doctors away. Well, I'm not sure if I agree. I can't fit anything else into my backpack. With the sense of a job well done, I sink into my armchair. But I don't even get a moment to enjoy the feeling. The intercom buzzes. When I hear the buzz, I freeze. It must be Hela. She's here to pick up the cat, like we arranged. It's been 2 years since I last saw her. I got over her and built myself from the ground up. But I still hold a grudge. And now, we are just a few flights of stairs from another meeting. When I look into her face again, after all the suffering, I'll show her how great I'm doing without her, because I'm totally not insecure. I'm about to leave for Africa to fulfill my dreams and write a book. When we were together, I would have never dared to do that. Now I'm a better man, stronger. And I accomplished it on my own without her. I can hear footsteps in the stairwell. I wait at the door. It draws me like a magnet. Should I shake her hand, kiss her cheek, offer her coffee, or get it over with and forget it? The doorbell rings. I open the door. Hela looks older. She's older, of course, but it's not about maturing. She looks unwell, tired, almost unhappy. Hi, she says. I'll grab the cat and go. Maciek's double parked in the front of the building. No, that's not me. Here we go. As soon as she opens her mouth, she brags about someone waiting for her. She's dealing the cards, as usual. Let me put Engels into his crate real quick, I tell her. You haven't done it yet, huh? She asks, with what seems to me as passive aggression in her voice. Do you want to help? Hela seems caught off guard by the question, but she agrees. We catch the cat in silence and lock him in the crate. The old routine goes like clockwork. We have it down to every single move. Back then, when we did it, we would have a little playful back and forth. Today, gestures and rituals have replaced words, and they awaken memories. We'll get going, she says. It was nice seeing you. Uh-huh. She holds her hand out to me. I shake it. Touching her feels strange. Memories from our nights together and walking trips outside the city in the spring flash before my eyes. By the way, guys, if you never visited Warsaw in spring, I do recommend it. It's really pretty. I remember all the wild retreats that we explored on weekends. Hela lets go of my hand first. She stares at the floor, flustered. Take care of yourself, in Africa. Text me when you land or something, she says. Keep an eye on him, okay? I reply, motioning at the crate. 1 hour later, I'm off to the airport. Yep, that's me. And before that, you could see J, our writer, the madman who wrote almost four books worth of text in this game, with lots of branching choices, and overall, around 10 hours per playthrough, and content easily for at least 2 or 3 of them. Chapter 2, Alexandria, Day 1. Borg El Arab Airport in Alexandria. The lounge is rectangular, spacious and 10 or so meters tall, its interior bright with natural light entering through the glass walls. The colors are muted, mostly beige, light brown and various shades of grey. Here and there a palm tree sticks out of a cube-shaped flower pot, an attempt to animate the otherwise blank space. So yeah, now we are in Alexandria and our story proper actually starts. We can see, the contrast of snowy Warsaw in January and fairly warm Egypt, and we set out in our search for someone who hopefully will be able to enable us in our goal of getting smuggled across the sea, like your normal refugee would. This is a new reality. European tourists who made up the majority of the passengers on the plane now seem like an exotic respite from the ubiquitous sight of men in tunics and women in hijabs. Looking at them, I'm fascinated. I look at all the Muslims I pass. I have no idea what their stories are. Contrary to what I expected, only some have their faces covered. Still, I feel a great sense of mystery. In Europe, I had learned to label people quickly. Pink hair, she must be a women's rights activist. Work-worn hands, I'm sure he voted for conservatives. I see, I judge, and I forget, and I move on. Here, it's simple. It's impossible. Each face is an enigma, a puzzle I want to solve. An ordinary walk around the airport suddenly becomes an exciting odyssey. Traveling is a bit like childhood. You see more. Your perception is sharpened by true curiosity of the world. It's actually a really good point. We actually did some traveling very recently as X0. Me and Jędrzej went to EJX London. It was my first time in London, and I definitely felt like a kid getting to experience on one hand European, but also fairly different from Polish culture, and see this bustling urban center that is London. And this is just the beginning of my adventures. According to my itinerary, I have nothing else planned for today. On margins of my research notes, alongside the underlying phone numbers, I only find a short reminder from my publisher, a subtle suggestion to call my fixers and set up some meetings once I have landed. The first one is Eric, a Belgian volunteer. The researcher clearly did his job and included some personal remarks to the standard profile. Eric Sonkamp, a humanitarian aid legend, used to volunteer in Europe but has recently launched his own project in Africa. An idealist, kind of a hippie, a man of action. Always busy, rarely picks up his phone during the day, sometimes call back past 11 p.m, sometimes, rarely. Call him multiple times a day, don't hold back. Age circa 65 but acts much younger. Attached, an email Q&A with Eric. I take a look at the interview with Eric. I read several questions picked at random out of the 57. Many sounds familiar. After all, I did help the researcher make the list. Question 8. What are the potential dangers for people sailing on a boat? Sinking and drowning. What do refugees eat on their journey? They do not. What is the daily cost of maintaining one immigrant at the camp? They're refugees, not immigrants, and you can Google it. What would happen if someone in the camp were a member of ISIS? No answer. Do you have any examples of the refugees' creative work, such as songs, poems, drawings? Yes, all of these. If so, which ones? Come and see yourself. The other questions and answers are written in a similar vein. Eric usually gives a short yes-no answers to my three sentence inquiries and mini essays. If he has to write a whole sentence, he disregards style, grammar, and punctuation. I mean, probably he's a busy guy. Or maybe he's just a dick, but I think I'll go with the former. The answers strike me with their brevity. Their sloppiness doesn't feel like disrespect to me. Rather, they attest to the constant rush in which Eric lives. He writes in monosyllables because he has more important things to do than explaining the nitty-gritty of the migration crisis to an amateur journalist from Central Europe. The conclusion is simple. Having read a couple dozen non-fiction books on Africa and the Middle East, I know nothing about the refugees. I can't even ask a question worthy of a longer answer. I check out the second set of contact details. His name is Isaac, and he's a native Egyptian. His profile reads: Isaac, or actually Ishaq Ahmed Mahmoud Ahmed Mohammed, a so-called fixer, someone who lives off his contacts. People say he can get a hold of anyone in Alexandria, or at least he says so. He charges for literally everything. It shouldn't surprise you if he bills you even for picking up. He often disappears for a few days, likely an active member of the criminal underworld. Warning: a shady guy. Stay vigilant. His personal data is incomplete. The date and place of birth are missing, and there's a cartoon of Robin Hood instead of his photo. There's only his phone number and the detailed address of his place of residence. That's it, nothing more. That's all the materials I've got to read. There's only one thing left. I need to answer the simple yet fundamental question at the stage of the trip. How will I spend my first day in Africa? At the back of my head, I still have my publisher's ominous warning not to fuck around. My itinerary includes just 3 days in Egypt, and the budget is not made out of rubber, as Jerzy likes to say. Well, this is our big shot, so I think we should listen to our publisher and not fuck around, at least not fuck around too much. I have no time to spare. The sooner I get to the refugees, the faster I can find a boat and cross the Mediterranean and get back to Europe, finish the book, and go back to my former life. The one I've just escaped by going to Africa. But maybe I won't have to come back? What if the book becomes a bestseller and this is my life now? A never-ending book tour. Motivated by the vision of a better future, I decide to call... Well, Eric seems like a bit of a safer option, but this is supposed to be a wild story, so I don't think we want to go with a safe option. We want to write a very unique book. I call Isaac. I count the tones. 1, 2, 5. The operator informs me that the number I'm trying to reach is currently unavailable. Or at least I assume he does, because I can barely understand Arabic. I try again to no avail. Isaac must be doing his shady business, as shady guys do. Maybe I'll find him at home. After all, I know the address. This way, at least I'll be sure he won't charge me for doing me the great honor of picking up his phone. Is this really such a great idea though? Paying a surprise visit to a man described as a shady guy to stay vigilant around? Well, it sounds risky, but that's just the kind of thing I should do. So yeah, as you can see, the player not only can see the really pretty hand-drawn illustrations made by our two artists, but also maps which kind of give you more of a spatial feel of actually where are you in the story, since after all it is kind of a travel story, and we wanted the player to to feel like you didn't just like you are not confined in a small space. Actually you do see a fair bit of the coast of Africa and other places that I will not spoil. I disregard the inflated prices and get into a taxi at the airport car park. Yeah, the prices. I think that's one thing that may be universal across all cultures. The prices of taxis from the airport suck. The young driver, a kid no older than 20, belongs to the new generation of Egyptians. He speaks English no problem and understands me immediately when I give him the address. However, unlike old-fashioned taxi drivers, he doesn't even try to be sociable. The moment he pulls out of the car park, he starts blasting American rap, black gangsta beats from the Bronx. Well, he clearly doesn't want to talk, so I will not bother him, and nothing against rap, but it's not really my kind of music, so I guess I'll just admire the landscape since it's our first time in Alexandria. The airport is 40 kilometers away from the city center. The four-lane beltway leads through blunt plains. There is concrete and sun-dried vegetation. More concrete though. Here and there is a fruit stall standing on the side of the road. Yeah, and absorbing the fumes from the car driving across from the airport and back whole day. The driver notices my interest in the landscape. He offers to exit the beltway. He will show me his favorite part of Egypt. Free of charge, he jokes and turns off the meter. A side road leads us to the coast. The buildings are squat and more traditionally Middle Eastern. Finally, a place which just doesn't resemble Europe. That is until the moment we reach the sea. The beach looks heavenly. Its fine white sands stretch for a couple hundred meters, and it's lined with tourist infrastructure, bars, restaurants, souvenir shops, just like a European resort town. I love this. This is my Egypt. Says the driver, pulling into our parking lot. Would you like to take a picture? I think I would like to head to the city. You know, if we just wanted to go to the beach, we could have stayed in New York. We literally have the same sea. I thank the driver politely for showing me the place. There is no need to stay here any longer though. This is not the Africa I'm looking for. Yeah, I agree. Let's go to the city, I tell him. 15 minutes later, we reach Alexandria. There is more concrete, formed into rectangles of buildings, some built of white brick, some golden like the sand of the beach, even less vegetation. At an intersection, the driver opens the window and shouts something at a crossing passerby, probably asking for directions. The stuffiness of Egyptian air hits me, as does the urban smoke. Although it's late January, the temperature in Alexandria can reach up to 25 degrees Celsius. I wish it was as warm in January in Poland. By the way, as you can see, some notifications about notes have just appeared. As mentioned in the onboarding section at the very beginning, notes are kind of your goal because they are basically themes which you can include in your in the story that you're writing. Not every note that you make obviously has to make it into the book, but you cannot write about stuff that you do not know about, so you want to collect as many notes as possible, or at least you shouldn't. You can see that we have some first impression, talk about the American influences in Egypt, and how densely urbanized Alexandria is. The light turns green. The driver gets off the main road and weaves his way through the side streets for a while until we reach our destination, Isaac's home. I pay the driver for the ride and got out of the car. It's a rich, touristy district. Isaac is clearly doing well in Egypt. I look up the decorated facade of a five-story townhouse. By the way, I really like this illustration. Like the colors are so pretty. Oh, and we can see that basically some of the choices that we've made decided that we've arrived at Isaac's place at this time and basically at this moment of the story, because it's not the only way that we can get here. I check the address again. That's right, this is Isaac's house. A cafe downstairs and apartments above. I pick his number on the intercom. It rings once, twice. Nothing, silence. I'll wait at the cafe. I sit down at a table, at a little table on the sidewalk. This is a perfect observation spot. I have an unobscured view of the entrance to the Isaac's house. I feel like a detective, and I like it. The only things I'm missing are a newspaper, probably with some cutouts for the eyes, a pair of really dark sunglasses, and a trench coat. A waiter approaches you. I mean, that's probably pretty common name, so they'll just take me for an idiot if I've just asked for an Isaac, or worse, if actually they know who's the Isaac, then maybe that's not the best way to meet him, by basically telling him that some people are looking for him. Just a black coffee, please. I tell the waiter and get back to observing Isaac's house. A minute passes. 2, 3 minutes. 4. Whoa, detective's lies are boring. 6, 7, 8. It's more interesting in movies, I guess. The waiter's back with my order. I take a sip of my coffee. I've made the mistake of just having an espresso. A minute later, the cup is empty. I'm starting to understand why cops bring extra large cups of black coffee to the stakeouts. You can't finish it this fast, and it kills boredom even for a few moments. I wait a little longer. 5 minutes. A quarter of an hour. Half an hour. A young woman stops in front of the entrance to Isaac's house. She crouches down, takes a pebble out of her sandal and walks away. Well, an hour. A police patrol waits around at the entrance to Isaac's house for 5 minutes and leaves. And another 15 minutes. And another. A taxi pulls up. A smartly dressed Egyptian with a fashionably groomed beard gets out. He walks up to the intercom with confidence. he presses the button with Isaac's apartment number. I freeze. I wait for what's going to happen. The man checks something on his smartphone screen. There is another tone from the intercom. A third one. A fourth. A fifth try. No answer. The man walks casually as if nothing happened. Well, I have to pay, like I'm not in a crime drama and I'm not actually a private detective, so bad things may happen if I do not pay. I jump out of my seat frantically, run into the cafe and find the cash register. I pay for my order, keep the change, and get back out on the street. Maybe 40 seconds have passed, but the man is gone without a trance. Fuck, I missed my chance. Poor by money honestly spent and time wasted, I head to the hotel to check in. So that's a bit of a spoiler, but if we just ran out of it, we could have caught up to him. But, fortunately this is not where the story ends. We will have other ways to meet Isaac and other interesting characters in Alexandria still. I check in at the reception desk and get a key to my suit. The publisher's gone really all out. My hotel, located in central Alexandria, is one of the best in the city and even has a pool. I take the lift to the 9th floor. Now I find myself in this tiny, closed, familiar space, isolated from the exotic stimuli. My adrenaline plummets. I realize how terribly exhausted I am physically. At the same time, I feel an intellectual excitement. My thoughts throb in my school. Finally, I have a moment to digest and sum up today's experiences. A desire to write is rising within me. I cross the corridor and open my door. It's a modestly sized suite with a sea view. On the horizon, strings of red lights from the ships anchored at the bay glimmer an upside down night sky. Before I start writing, I make myself a drink. I did have a pretty rough day. Missing my chance to maybe get some contacts. I open the minibar and find a few tiny bottles of liquor. There's nothing like getting drunk at your employer's expense. I neither confirm or deny this sentiment. I break the seal on the first bottle and start my literary ritual of making the space mine. Bourbon. First, it's bourbon, heavy and atmospheric. I turn off the ceiling lamp for a more fitting ambience. Well, maybe some cognac. When I get to the cognac, I test the swivel jar at the desk. It's soft and comfortable, too comfortable for a writer, I think. Sitting in it may drain me from my motivation to finish my texts. I think I have already a nice booze going on, and mixing 3 kinds of alcohol might be a bit too much. I can start writing. I pick a playlist on my phone and press play. There's a notification on my phone telling me that I have 3 missed Skype calls from Jerzy. That's my publisher. I was supposed to call him as soon as I reach the hotel. We are still in Alexandria and it's pretty safe to assume that nothing bad has happened to us, so maybe I should use the whatever motivation I have and start writing. I'm not going to get distracted anymore. I open my notebook and look through the observations I wrote down earlier today. I read through my notes twice, once, twice, 3 times. My brain processes the fresh experiences again and again, but I can't focus enough. My thoughts circle back to the publisher. Almost an hour passes before I can silence my consciousness. And then the phone rings again. It's Jerzy, the publisher. Oh, sorry. Have you found your refugee yet? It's Jerzy, the publisher. And he gets right down to business. Some people consider him rude and vulgar. But you cannot deny him one thing. He gets results. The small publishing house he's been running for 15 years is famous for controversial books and much publicized premieres. Critics either lambast his authors or extol them. No one stays indifferent, and readers love his books. Not yet, I answer truthfully. What have you been doing today then? Jerzy continues his interrogation in a tone so harsh it could peel dead skin off the heels of my feet. I get off my chair and start pacing the room nervously. I mean, we did try, so might as well tell him the truth. I recap my day for him. I try to mask my failure to follow the plan with my enthusiasm. So you mean you were fucking around? Jerzy interrupts me. Remember, I've paid for 2 nights in Alexandria, not one more. Find a refugee who will contact you. You with the smugglers, if you prefer partying there, it's your choice. But you will be paying for each day out of your own pocket. Next order of business, the receipts. Remember to collect all the bills, every single expense. I guess if I will listen, maybe he'll get off my back quicker. Has to be documented, Jerzy continues. Otherwise, I won't reimburse you, and you will have to pay for everything yourself. The instructions and all the forms are in your folder, including consent forms for personal data and image use. They are in English, French, and Arabic. If you want to mention someone by their full name in your book, have them sign one. That will be challenging. Should I ask the smugglers for a receipt too? I try to mock him. Could you? There is hope in Jerzy's voice. That would be great. Yeah, sure. You know what? You don't ask them, just to be safe. He changes his mind. Or else they might identify you as a journalist and stop you, or decapitate you, or whatever the African way of killing is. Yeah, very worldly guy, this Jerzy, clearly. And who's going to write my book? Don't make me lose my advance. Pay for the smuggling out of your pocket and we'll bump up your fee. Okay, that's it for me. Good luck out there. Get to work, lazy ass. And he hangs up. Jerzy hangs up. An intense silence fills the suite. It helps me focus. I sit back down at the desk and open my notebook. I look through the sentences and thoughts I noted down today. I contemplate which ones have the potential of becoming the building blocks for a book. I know from experience that it's best to form those observations into paragraph drafts when they are still fresh. Today, the short, concise keywords evoke dozens of associations. In several days, they will just be tombstones in the graveyard of long-gone thoughts. Still, it isn't really worth expanding every single entry, which is basically, the intro to our note mechanic. The ability for the player to choose which notes they want to further include into the story they're creating and which might as well be forgotten. In a few weeks' time, when I've gone back to Europe and started writing further drafts, I will drown in an ocean of digressions and side plots, and ultimately my book may turn out to be sort of about everything, but actually nothing in particular. Selecting the material, especially at such an early stage, is often the key to giving it good structure. It's worth following on overall theme and paying attention to what really interests me. Keeping in mind these assumptions, I look through the notes again, which notes are worth expanding on. Well, let's start with our first impressions. Yeah, and obviously we were able to pick these options because we had this node. I focus on the people because, I think that's what really differentiates places. Airports are by design quite often non-distinct and pretty much the same wherever you go, unless you go really far off the beaten path. I write a paragraph portraying the people I met. I look for some universal themes which could connect the Muslim and the European communities. I move on to another entry. I read through my draft a few times over so I can enjoy the melody of the sentences. Then I wonder if I would like to expand on something else tonight. Then we can go with our impression of the actual city of Alexandria. Concrete, burned by the sun, covers the desert landscape like an intricate network of veins and arteries. Roads and highways connect the separate organs into one great body, metropolitan Alexandria. For some, it represents the triumph of civilization over wilderness. For others, a violation of nature. I describe particular buildings I saw, such as the European-style hotel complex towering over the bay, or the domes and tower of mosques emerging from the sea of urban architecture. I write about the districts I passed through: tourist, residential, industrial, slums. My focus on architecture allows me to look at the country holistically. It lays bare the regional mechanism at play, the dynamics that govern the entire community. Impossible to perceive from the point of view of a regular pedestrian who is just trying to get from point A to point B. I think that's enough for today. We don't want to water down our book too much, and kind of our first impression and then entry into Alexandria. It's not, ultimately what we are aiming to base our story around, but it is a nice introduction, hopefully, for the reader. So that's enough for today. I close my notebook and put my pen down. That's enough for today. I don't need to write anything else. Feeling like I've fulfilled my literary duty, I can finally go to bed. My first day in Africa has come to an end. And that's all for this playthrough. Thank you so much for watching this stream. This is literally my first time ever doing something like this, but I did enjoy playing our game, like I said earlier, kind of from more casual perspective, not trying to dissect it, but instead trying to put myself into the eyes of your normal player who would be able to play this demo, which is, I presume you are seeing this in Steam, but you can play the demo yourself and see many different paths, because as you saw, I had lots of choices, and I opted out of many of them because I decided to pick one path or another, and especially in Alexandria, there's a lot of ways which the story can unfold. Actually, later on as well. Overall, like the tree of our story at times reminds me more of a you know, like bramble or something than actual tree, because there's so many overlapping branching paths and conditions and choices. And like the text here says, the best way to support our project is to wishlist us on Steam. Okay, that's all. Thank you so much. Cheers.